let's just get out of the way, Luke. I think I've got raging ADHD.
Right,
So,
okay.
the amount of times I've been like, oh yeah, I'll be able to bash that out, no problem. And then I've been like, wow, when I sing this in the car, it's really not like I'm singing it at a gig. It's not just about when you start this kind of work, it's saying, I can sing or I can play guitar. There is so much more about it that I can perform, I can be a showman, I can manage people in difficult circumstances.
Absolutely.
I really, really, really struggle with imposter syndrome, of that idea of everybody else is better than me, everybody else is more talented than me. All those like little comments, they have an impact and they start creating that sort of narrative that you have for yourself. But I thought this is part of my expression. It's art, and I now have got to the point where I am ready to express myself about things that I've experienced and things that I feel. I'm ready to do that unapologetically.
Okay. You ready?
Yeah?
You got your beer?
Yeah. Cheers.
Right, hello, welcome to the One More Songcast. My name's Luke, and we've got another guest episode today. Lee's back with us in a week or so I'm holding the ship. Is that the turn of phrase? I'm not quite sure, but I'm on my own again this week. And we've got Kathy Sings with us, a very last minute appointment today. I messaged you last night, didn't I?
Yeah.
And said, fancy coming on?
It's been on the books for a while, hasn't it?
Well, it has,
So,
yeah. First of all, obviously, you helped us start to design this studio. So what do you think of it?
I love it. It's well good. That was it when you said, do you want a beer? And I was like, well, yeah, if I've come to my little local pub too, right? Yeah. It's lovely. It's really good.
We were deciding, weren't we, like what we should turn it into, like a modern pub, but we went for the old school looking thing, didn't it?
It's well good.
Very Only Fools and Horses, I guess, isn't it? But, yeah. So what have you been up to, Kathy?
Just lots of gigs. They were saying now it's December, loads and loads of gigs. And then just, I've got 4 kids, and so it's balancing kids, mumming, school, all, and then doing gigs as well as, so. But it works out really well, and I know that's one of the reasons why I started gigging, was because when I had my babies, it worked really well because nursery fees are absolutely disgraceful. And so because I had my kids quite close together, I would have had like multiple kids in nursery. That was not going to happen. So my husband works during the days in the week, and I worked at night at the weekend, and it worked quite well.
Yeah, I imagine it does work well for childcare, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's all right. And I'm like, well, the kids are in bed when I gig, so I'm not really missing out on them. I mean, maybe it put a bit of a strain on the marriage, but
There is
that's for a whole other podcast.
Yeah,
but you'll know that, like, when you're in a relationship, it does every Friday, Saturday night, you're out the house. It's it does.
I know.
But no, it's worked for the time being.
Yeah, you do really have to find sort of somebody that's understanding of that, don't you? Because it really isn't a normal job, is it?
No.
And like you say, you're sort of off. I mean, is that the only job you have?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're kind of off most of the week, aren't you? And then it's chaos for 2 days or whatever, isn't it? So.
And I tell you what I've found as well over the years is that realisation that come Monday, when everyone else is gearing up to be really productive and getting ready, I'm like proper on it. Oh, that's it. I've used all my spoons for the weekend. I'm done. And so I've had to really adjust that idea of like, right, the beginning of the week, let's go. And then on Monday, I'd get nothing done because I'm absolutely shattered.
No, it's weird,
and
isn't it?
my husband's been like, it's all right. You've got to realize you've just finished your working block, so you're all right to just take that little bit of time.
It's almost like giving yourself that acceptance that you're all right to chill out almost.
Yeah, because you're trying to live both lives. If not, you're trying to live your Monday to Friday life like everyone else, but then also live the gigging life for like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, whatever. And it's unsustainable.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested to ask you as well. So I find it like on the Monday, you're like, because I don't know if you're the same, but I feel a great sense of relief when I've got to the end of a weekend a lot of the time. Like, it's enjoyable, but there's also that sort of like, it's done. And then the Monday, you feel like you're going to be buzzing because you've got through it, but you're actually on some sort of weird come down where you're like, I don't know, you still feel a little bit amped up by it all and a bit sort of still stressed slightly. I can't explain it. Do you feel the same? Or?
A little bit. I suppose it's like being in limbo. Like, after one weekend's done, it's not like you're at the weekend. You know, everyone else sort of finishes work on a Friday and then they've got the weekend, they have all their fun and then they ramp back up again. But we work at weekends, so then when comes Monday, it's not like we're going to be going out with our mates and going having. It's like, well, no, this is during the week, so we like clean our houses and do all this boring stuff that everyone else does. But I feel like it's kind of limbo before. Well, as soon as we get to Friday, starts all up again, and that's it. You know,
it's just a cycle, and I find doing this job as well. Like actually, the week flies, doesn't it? It's crazy. Like
I'm like, it's not. It's Friday already. Like, how the hell has that happened?
Right, I'm going to learn a load of new songs this week.
And come off it. No.
Yeah, you don't. Do you? You never do.
Yeah, I wonder if I get the guilt of like, I've played this place before and they've heard all the same songs. I need to learn some new songs, and then it's like finding the time to learn them, picking which ones to learn, and then learning them well enough that you gig ready, but also that you don't want to learn them too well, like put too much time in, because I think, well, if I gig it and it bombs out, well, I'm just going to scrap it and all that time will be wasted, and I find that really, really difficult. And when I do a new song, I'm well proud of myself. I'm like, absolutely. I've learned a new song, guys. You know?
It never goes well the first, second, third time, or does it really? I mean, people wouldn't notice, but I think a lot of the time you're like, oh god, I need a few more goes at that.
Yeah.
Do you do many weddings? Or have you done weddings in the past?
Yeah.
The amount of time and effort I've put into some wedding songs, and then they're not in, like, they're like, this song means so much to me, blah blah blah, and you're like, all right, I'm going to give it a go. You do it, no one's listening, and you're like, all right, that was worth like the 10 hours.
They'll give you that's it. People don't realise they'll give you this. If it's like a first dance or something, that's fair enough, because they're there dancing and you know. But I totally get that. It's like, this is a list of songs that we want you to include, and you're like, well, that's take a long time for me to learn, rehearse, get gig ready and stuff like that. And I've got an awful memory, like really bad.
What, for
like
lyrics?
I mean, most things, but I mean, worryingly bad, like bordering on might need to book an appointment back. You know?
What you like with losing things?
Yeah. Let's just get out of the way, Luke. I think I've got raging ADHD.
Right.
So,
okay. I was going to say dementia then, but
well, no. I mean, who knows? But yeah, I'm awful, and that idea of like forgetting a lead. And
oh god,
I forgot that little, the little white bit that goes in with your lead that plugs into that, and I've not got a kettle lead, and then I'm scratching about ringing anyone I know. I've probably rung you in the past and been like, you haven't got a cable I can borrow? You need Charlie? I'm just at a pub, I'm due on in 10 minutes. And
that's the thing, isn't it? A little cable can be so detrimental to your gig, can't it? Like, crazy.
But then again, when that's happened, it's surprising how you kind of have to think on the spot. And I've done gigs before now where I've been like downloading tracks to my phone that I'm like, I know that song inside out, no worries, I can plug that in, this, that, and especially when I'm used to my gear and everything I need, and it's when they say, oh no, it's just a plug and play and this and that, and they've not got the right adapter to go into like my tablet or something like that, and I'm like, oh no.
I know, because you can get a lead for every situation, like, like the little add-ons, like
like with 12 different possibilities.
Yeah, you can get a lead for everything, but there's always something that you've not got as well. It's like, like you say, but yeah, it's what's your, I think I might have told this story before actually, but there's been times I've had to get like Jess, my wife, to meet me like
you're getting used to that.
I did it last week as well. Your girlfriend, and she's meeting you halfway across Lancashire for a bloody wire, like you say. It's mad, isn't it?
And that's another thing, going back to like your partner, they've got to be very understanding of the fact that you are going to bail me out of a number of gigs, and also that idea that if they're at a gig, then you are full on expecting them to be your little like hype person in the corner. Like if I finish a song and Daniel isn't the first to clap, I'm like, I'm sorry, what? Because I'm like, well, I need you to, so and again, like I've done a couple, like they come to a lot of gigs, they'll, especially early days, and they see all the songs inside out. I remember I did one, and everyone's done it. Everyone will have had a gig where you end up singing to hardly anyone.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Everyone's done it. And the first time you do it, you think, oh my God, it's because I'm really bad. And then you realise, actually, everyone has done these kinds of gigs. And I did one gig, and I got to a pub, and it was absolutely rammed. And I thought, this is going to be a well good gig. And then I realised that there'd been a christening in the afternoon, and everyone were well oiled, and then they all buggered off. And so I ended up playing to just Daniel and the barmaid. Even the landlord left. I was like, in a bit. But Daniel was sat there clapping to every song, like being a good little boyfriend. And I was like, babe, you've heard all these songs.
You should have just been like, I don't know him.
It's all right. Yeah, I should have.
It's just a really happy punter.
But I was like, don't worry, babe, it's all right. And he's like, no, it was really good. And I'm like, oh, bless him.
No, that's nice.
So nice. Your partner does have to be there and bail you out and support you and do all.
Absolutely.
And also, like, I'll try songs and I'll be like, what do you think of this? Do you think I should put it in? And he'll be like, do you really know it? And I'm like, damn it, he's called me out on that one, and stuff, and whether or not it'll go down well.
You do need that honesty as well sometimes, don't you? And I think hopefully that's what a relationship brings is, it's not that good, that. Because my dad, for example, would just be like, it's brilliant, that. And it's like, is it though?
Is it? Yeah.
yeah.
Or worse, when they're at a gig and you're like, right, that's my last song, guys. Thanks very much, bye. And then all of a sudden you hear them and they call out the song that they like, and you're like, shut up. I don't want to sing that song. Shut up.
I know. You get the same questions every weekend, don't you? Requests, which I don't particularly do, and I don't imagine you do either, do you? I mean, you'll have a pot of songs, won't you?
So people will say, do you do requests? And I say, if I know it, I'll sing it. If I don't, I can't. Simple, like, because I think it's not like you're a DJ where you could quickly download something, or you've got a list of countless songs. There's only so many songs that can be in my head, and so many songs that I've got backing tracks to and stuff.
Even just having a rough idea of the song isn't enough, is it? Really?
No, not because I've learnt that the hard way. The amount of times I've been like, oh yeah, I'll be able to bash that out, no problem, and then I've been like, wow, when I sing this in the car, it's really not like I'm singing it at a gig, and I've no idea of the song. And there's been times where I've just been like, let's just stop that there. I obviously don't know that song. Really? Apologies. I like to talk to the audience and get to know them, so I don't mind showing that vulnerable side. I know it's not everybody's cup of tea. I know people like often the artiste to be very polished and but that's just not me. I'm a little bit more
I think people appreciate
personable
that,
kind of thing.
I think people do. I think people can see through like you say, like being really polished and sort of putting an act on. I think it's nice to be yourself, isn't it? And I think people appreciate that more, I would say. Yeah,
I think it's just whether or not it's how you feel comfortable, isn't it? Because I don't feel like I'm the kind of person to be like, so this next song was from 1980, or whatever. I'm not that kind of person. I'm much more like, guess what happened today? Or, tomorrow I'm doing something exciting. And I'll talk about all sorts of random shite. And there has been times when I've heard the odd audience member tell me to get on with it, and I've told them, hey, shut up, I've got the microphone, I will tell this story, because I'm like, if one person's enjoying it and I'm chatting to him, because I'll often say, just bear with, I'm just having a chat with this person, and I like that. I like getting to know my audience, and it's funny, I don't know how you feel. Although I like big, exciting gigs, like, oh my God, I'm playing a big venue.
Well, sure.
I like the small ones where I can get to know people and have a laugh with them.
Definitely,
I much prefer that than when the audience is further away and you can't actually interact with them.
Yeah, I think for me anyway, you're weighing up as well, like, some gigs seem very overwhelming when that request comes through, doesn't it? It's like, hi, I want you to play at this wedding and it's such a body, and you're like, do I actually want to do this?
Yeah.
Whereas, like you say, some of your comfy ones in a nice comfy pub setting, I think sometimes they're a lot better, aren't they? Especially if you're going down well, I reckon. Just as we move on to talk about your life, and your career, because that's what we want to hear from you today, because obviously I know you a little bit, Lee knows you a little bit, and probably people that watch the podcast know you a little bit, but not sort of in depth, if that makes sense. We'll go as in depth as you like, you know what I mean? So Christmas run up then. So obviously, as you can see by all the decorations, what are we on today? Is it 3rd of December, recording day today?
3rd, yeah. You had your 3rd little advent chocolate this morning, Luke, seriously.
No, I haven't. I actually forgot do you have an advent calendar, Ashton, or... You've got one,
too right. Ash's got an advent calendar. Yes, mate.
Got my cousin on the editing today. Shout out. I haven't. What have you got? What chocolate?
Basic.
Oh, is it?
Oh, have you just got like a basic
Amazon
dairy milk? Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, my kids have got multiples. They've got bloody wooden trains that I have to fill with all the crap, and sometimes they get multiple chocolates. Yeah. And then Auntie Sam buys them one, so they're all like bouncing off their tits by the time they get to school because they've been having so many chocolates.
I thought it was just one.
Well, I know, so did I, but obviously, times have changed. So anyway, sorry, we've gone off piste again, haven't we?
I was going to ask you, so obviously the Christmas period has now started with gigging. And how do you respond to that in the early stage? Because it's a very overwhelming. I keep saying that word today. It must be how I'm feeling at the minute. But it is quite there's a lot of gigs, thick and fast.
Yeah.
The demand's quite big because there's Christmas parties and people are expecting a lot of you a lot of the time. How do you do you enjoy it?
I was thinking about this because a few different sort of layers to the overwhelm, let's say. I feel like the first one is there is a lot of pressure that everybody there has to have a really banging night because it's their Christmas do. So there's a lot of pressure on you to be like, right, you've got to really bring your A game. Every single gig has to be banging, because some of those people who were at that gig don't go out all the rest of the time.
No.
They just go out because it's their works Christmas do or whatever, or so it's an unusual thing. So you've got to be really, really good. So there's that. There's also the pressure of remembering songs that you only pull out, you dust off once a year, and you're like, oh God, I've got to remember the blooming words to this. Yeah. Being a girl, I don't know if you might have this as well. I also feel the pressure to try not to slaughter Mariah Carey's.
Oh, I suppose,
good grief.
What you could do at whistle
Sing
and all
Mariah
that.
Carey, and I'm thinking, good God, don't do it to me. And
do you change the key? Oh, I'm not,
well, I've learned the hard way that I should do.
Right, yeah. But you've not.
I did it other night. I thought I got well too big for my boots, and I was like, yeah, let's smash out a bit of Mariah. And then at the end of it, I was like, I apologise for that, ladies and gentlemen. I did not go to plan. Fortunately, I think they were all too pissed to realise they were all right, they were fine. But no, so there's that. And I think as well, but when you're gigging or entertaining or any kind of public sector, public and hospitality sort of role, December is busy, and then January is nothing. Yeah. And so I feel I really struggle generally with the job with burnout, like cyclical, like every now and again. And so with having so many gigs in December, I should, if I was a sensible person, say, I've got enough gigs, I've got enough to pay my bills, thank you very much, and that will be that. But you don't, because you think, well, January is going to be a tough month, so I need to say yes to every single thing that comes my way. And then come December 12th, you're like running on fumes, you've no idea what the hell's going on, you've still got to buy Christmas presents, the same pressures as everybody else.
You're like, I've got a gig, I've got a gig at 5, but I should make it,
I can squeeze in 2:45. What on earth? It's just ridiculous. And that's when it puts pressure on family time as well, because obviously this time of year I've got nativities and concerts and Christmas fairs and all sorts of that coming out my ear rolls. So it's squeezing everybody else's Christmas things in as well. But I think that's the nature of being self-employed as well. With any kind of work, is that because you don't know when the next work's going to come in, you just say yes to it all, because you're trying to make hay while the sun shines and be like, no, I need to just make sure I've got this little pot ready to keep tide me over to January. How
do you find, because I don't solely rely on the gigging, I have a small part-time job as well. I imagine the pressure's amplified then when you're just a musician.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate that my husband has a decent job and he's keeping us ticking over. But saying that, when we first met and when I first started gigging, I was a teacher. I was a primary school teacher, and I loved it, absolutely loved it. But it wasn't, for any teachers out there, anyone who knows any teachers, it is not a job, it is a way of life. And it completely encompasses every single thing that you do.
The teaching?
Yeah. And so in the end, I was like, I need to step away from it. I had my daughter then, and it was that balance of saying, I can't be the teacher I want to be and the mum I want to be personally. So I had to make a choice. And then the realisation that actually, because of childcare fees and pay and stuff like that, I was coming out with more disposable income gigging 3 nights a weekend than I was being a teacher full-time Monday to Friday. And you were like, seriously? So I'm spending 5 days a week away from my kids, working full-time, tearing my hair out, plus all the other stuff you need to do. But I could go and gig on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and I'd have the same, not the same income, but the same disposable income. You're like, well, it's a bit of a no-brainer, really.
True.
So it wasn't as much of a leap of faith for me, because I had them both at the same time. I didn't let let that go until I knew this was established. And also in them days, I had an agent, and even though it was really tough, I think it was perhaps one of the best things I did as a singer in order to get experience. So I was signed with an agent over Manchester way. So the difficulty was I could be driving who knows, anywhere around Northwest.
And what sort of like time period did you say get offered a gig and then take it? Like, could you be offered something on the Thursday and you'd be out on the Friday, or was it a bit more pre-planned than that?
Well planned.
Right.
Like, you were booked in like weeks, months, you know, because it were all pubs and clubs. So, and I quite liked it. There were some nights when I was like, this is full on Phoenix night, and I absolutely love it. I think if you embrace it for what it is, then it's great.
There's still a few of them about now, not many, but there are a few.
You know what? And I did those times. There were times when I was like, oh my God, another game of bingo. Seriously.
You have a little dressing room in the back as well, sort
not
of thing.
Always. Sometimes you'd have a cupboard. Sometimes you'd have a full-on like settee dressing room. I remember one cutest thing. There was a bloke. There's always like usually a compere who looks after you, and there was one, and he was dead nice. And he used to make the artiste. He'd get his wife to make you some butties and put them in a little butty box and put them in the dressing room for you. And you're like, oh, cute. There was a bit of me that thought I'd like to see the hygiene rating of your kitchen before I start eating them, but nevertheless. So yeah, there were some that were dead good like that. And so you'd often sing, and then they'd have like bingo or open the box or anything else that they're doing, and then you'd sing later on. So that was really difficult because you had very specific arrival times as well, because it was through the agent. So sometimes I'd have to arrive at like 7, and I wouldn't be doing my last bit till 12:30.
Okay.
Pack up and get home. So it's a long day. If the venue was an hour and a half away, that's quite a long stint. But I loved it. I really, really enjoyed it. Yeah. I wouldn't necessarily want to go back and do that like all the time, but I did love it. It was good fun, and I think it helped me gain a lot more confidence in managing an audience, because I think that's what a lot of people don't necessarily understand, that it's not just about when you start this kind of work, and you'll know it's not about saying I can sing or I can play guitar. There is so much more about it, that I can perform, I can be a showman, I can manage people in difficult circumstances.
Absolutely.
I can read an audience and think on my feet. I can deal with staff members at venues, and you know, it's all that kind of stuff. There's so much more involved. Yeah. And that's the difference, I feel, when you see somebody new and you're like, oh my God, what an amazing voice, but you can tell they're new because they've just not got that. Yeah. All the other aspects of it. They've got that core bit.
They finish the song and it's like, thank you, and then they're on to the next one, and then they're just a bit stiff. And
it's like somebody being an amazing chef, but only being able to make like one meal at a time. That's you know, there's other skills of that shit. So I find that by doing them relentless gigs, one after another, after another, after another, all over the Northwest, that were just quite draining, but it helped me. I had to learn fast, you know, which was good.
So let's go back to them earlier days then, when you did start gigging. So you started gigging quite fairly late, didn't you?
Yeah.
Because I was the same, like 25-ish.
Yeah, so the only reason I started gigging, I'd done, when I was a kid, we went to church and I'd sang at church. And my dad, when I was a kid, he played guitar. And he did some folk music, but I never saw him gig or perform. Okay. I only ever saw him at home if he got his guitar out. And then I always knew I enjoyed singing, and at school I did the odd show and stuff. And then it wasn't until I was probably, about 25, 26, and I became a single mum. And I thought, oh shit, I'm going to have to get some extra income going, you know, here. So at the time I worked for social services. And so I was going to be a full-time student on my teacher training. And I thought, well, I've got like every other weekend, I've not got my daughter, so I need to try and find some way. So I managed to borrow a PA system of a family member, and they kind of showed me how to use it. I was like, right, okay. And I literally just rang up my pub that was round the corner, my local, and I was like, all right, Darren, do you wanna book me? I'm starting singing. Will you like pay me 50 quid? And he was like, yeah, go on then. And I must have been shit, but at the same time, I thought, I've got to do something. I can't, you know.
What was that first gig like then? Did it go well?
Oh, it was crap. I was proper scared. Like, I can't even tell you how scared I was. And you know, one of the biggest things, what do I say in between? What do I say in between? What do I do? What do I do? What do I do with my hands? All that kind of stuff. Which once you start, just becomes second nature. You don't really think about it. But at the beginning, it was like, how do I stand? What do I do with my hands? And what do I say in between the songs? They were the bits that I struggled with.
And it's so you're a vocalist, aren't you? And the majority of what you do is singing to tracks, isn't it? And I started off the same as that, and I really struggled with like my hands and stuff, knowing what to do with them, and I find myself just closing my eyes a lot of the time because I just
cringe, because you're like, I just don't want to see people.
I just don't want to like see what I'm doing myself, and as soon as I get a guitar in my hand, I feel a little bit more relaxed because it just at least your hands are somewhere, and it's like
I think you know what I think a lot of singers as well feel the same with a mic stand, that it's almost like your armor. It's like something to anchor you, anchor you down, and I don't use a mic stand because I like to jig about, and so I just have my mic and I move around a lot. I find that a mic stand keeps me very static, and I feel like I have to stick with it. So I like to move around a little bit more. But again, that's only over time. At first I wouldn't. I just stood, feet glued to the spot.
And then with the backing tracks, you've got that obvious break in instrumentals and stuff like that, which again I found really difficult because it's like I'm not really a dancer and a mover, and I'm not that loose sometimes and stuff like that, and you're kind of just like, come on, you're doing this little jig, and you're like,
I know what you mean,
but once after you go through that probationary period, I bet you're a bit more like you know what to do in them situations.
I think it helped me with the fact that I'd done like stage stuff before, so that I'd had the idea of performing, like dancing around. I think that helped. Performing in the past helped me get used to that idea that sometimes you are just dancing and have that little bit of a show. And also I have to concentrate a lot on counting how many bars that I've got to be dancing for, because if I get too into it, I'll be like, oh shit, I need to be singing, crap, and I forget, and I end up losing the plot and
unless
stuff.
you leave some sort of backing vocal in there or something on the track, like you say, you have to be really tight on the tracks. And sometimes that's a lot harder than even just playing acoustic versions, because with an acoustic version it's like, I've missed the chord there, I'll get back to the chorus. You can't do that with a track.
That's a big thing. I always prefer playing with live instruments, always, because there's that, like it's a language. Music is a language. It's a written form and a spoken form, if you will, and stuff. And so when you're playing music with somebody else, there is that communication between you, and especially when it's just been me and a guitarist, or when I've been in a band, there's been that communication of like, we'll go around again, or we'll just drop it here, and then we'll build it up, and you do all that without speaking, and it feels really good. A bit cliche for people who don't know music, but you'll know there's that buzz of the fact that we had no idea where that song was going to go, but we did what we did, and that was good. Backing tracks don't give you that. No. That is structured, and if you miss that beat, that music's going to carry on, and you've got to cover it up and laugh it off, or And
at some gigs as well, you can't always hear yourself crystal clear, and you can't always hear the track crystal clear either. So that's another challenge, isn't it?
Yeah, I end up having to like stand really close to a speaker to hear the first two, especially tracks that start off quiet, like listening and then being like, okay,
So in that sort of so obviously you'd quit your job and you'd gone for the music with your agent. What were them? How long did it sort of take you to get into it and feel like you were starting to belong there, and that you were starting to become a little bit more accomplished, I suppose?
I think I've done it for about 12 years now, and I think I still don't.
Right, okay.
But because I don't know if this is something that a lot of people feel, but I really, really, really struggle with imposter syndrome, of that idea of everybody else is better than me, everybody else is more talented than me, or in more high demand than me. And it's really bad. Like in the past, and even now, I have to purposefully unfollow other artists because seeing their content makes me anxious about my own.
I can understand that,
especially when people are really good on social media. We've said I'm awful on social media, and because you've got to post stuff, and I'm crap at it because I'm like, well, actually. Excuse me, I just want to go out and do my job. I don't want to have to prove to all the people who weren't there that I did it and it sounded like this. But that's the nature of it.
What you like with watching videos back of yourself then and stuff like that from gigs?
Hypercritical.
Yeah, because I hate that as well. Like that. It's very rare that I post any gig footage because I do get very pedantic with like the quality of it and all that. And I'm
like, oh, that don't sound, that was just off. And other people probably don't hear
won't
it, but
notice
I
it.
know.
Yeah.
I know when that's just
because you know your
off.
voice inside out, don't you?
Yeah.
So it's like you do notice everything, and I think it's not nice experience either sometimes, because like obviously I've got into the recording of the music as well, and I'll hear things vocally that I won't like, and that just stays with you forever. You can't actually just enjoy your own music and your own. Every time I put my tune on or whatever, or I hear it being played or whatever, I'm always just criticising it rather than go, oh, it doesn't sound that great on them speakers, or like I'm never like going, oh, it's my tune, that.
Yeah, so saying that, when you said about like how do you feel like have the sense of belonging, it's only been in the last, I'd say, 6 months that I've felt a little bit more comfortable, and I've allowed myself, like literally that phrase, allowed myself to write my own music.
Yes.
For multiple reasons. Partly because I don't play an instrument, so it was like, well, you're not really a musician, are you?
Well,
which
no, that's not true.
I know, but as I know, it's one of those things that like I can say it about myself. If someone else said it to me, I'd be well annoyed. I'd be like, I think you will find.
Yeah.
But that's how I feel. I feel that if I played an instrument, I would have more value as a gigging artist.
But I feel like that. And I can play a guitar, but I can't play a guitar as well as the next person.
So there's always that layer.
I don't think you'll ever get that feeling of like I'm the best or whatever.
And I'd hope that
belonging.
I wouldn't, because I think if I did, then I'd be like, well, where else is there to go?
Yeah.
But yeah, in the last 6 months or so, the band that I'm in now, we've started writing our own stuff, and I've sort of led the lyrics and stuff like that. And I sent some stuff to you, didn't I? And it's that idea of allowing your own style. And I know people say, oh, you shouldn't compare and stuff like this, but you do. It's natural to be like, well, I want it's in a certain style, but I don't want it to sound exactly like or whatever.
Yeah.
And I've found that by me writing, it's been very cathartic, but almost like it's very raw. And to the point where I wrote one song and I put it on my WhatsApp group. That's the worst bit, isn't it? Like that first bit that you do, that you send it to the first person.
Yeah.
Sent it on the WhatsApp group to the band. And my drummer said, oh, that's very personal. And I was like personal, like it's made you feel uncomfortable, or like personal, like, oh wow, that's really good. She was like, it's just a very personal song. And I was like, oh shit, maybe I need to rein it in a little bit. Like I'm doing like therapy through writing and stuff, but you do, because you write about what you know, and it's your feelings.
Yeah.
But I think I'd rather have a song that is true and raw than a song that I've just written for the sake of it being a catchy tune and it being fun to.
It's funny you say that, because I can't remember where I saw it. You're scrolling for Instagram or YouTube or whatever, and there was this accomplished writer or whatever, and he says, I never ever write for people. So as soon as you do that, you've lost. Write for yourself. And I thought that's really interesting, that, isn't it? Because I think naturally you do start to think, well, will people like this? I'll change this bit because people might not like that. But actually, if you just do it all about you, it just or what you want, I think that's, you love artists for them, don't you? You don't love them because they've tried to do something for you.
And it's like a window into who they are.
Yeah.
And it's and I suppose that's with any form of art. I said this just to somebody the other day. I went to have you ever been to Salt's Mill in Saltaire?
No, I haven't. Where's Salt? I've heard of Saltaire.
It's over Yorkshire way. It's really, really good.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the blooming artist's name now. You're going to have to Google it later. And tell. There's an artist who's from there and has all his work there. And I remember going with a friend and I saw some of his artwork on the wall. And I remember saying to her, I can look at that now, and because he is an established artist, I'm like, that's amazing. But if I'd have drawn that, I'd have said, oh, it's a bit shit. I've not quite got that line right. That colour's not quite right. Because you're self-critical of yourself, but you would never do that for somebody else's achievement. And so I started looking at my own music, and instead of thinking, oh, what if somebody else thinks that this is naff or whatever, I've just been thinking, well, this is a window of me. And if people enjoy it, they can listen to it. If they don't, they can just press skip. They don't have to listen to it. Right. I have been nervous about writing. I've written songs about people and experiences. Are you all right, Ash? You look like you're fidgeting. Are you okay? Have I done something wrong? All right. Okay.
I've always got a corner in my eye.
I know, I can see him. I'm like, there's an emergency. So I write, the songs that I've written so far have been about people in my life, past, present, experiences that I've had. And I've been nervous at that idea of what about one day which it will happen one day when that person will hear it, or people who will know them will hear it, and they'll have that little window into my perspective or my experience of that. Friends, family members, old relationships and stuff like that. And not to be cliche, but one of my highlights of 2024 was going watching Taylor Swift. And I love listening to her songs, and it's like, oh, well, she wrote that. Oh, Ash, you. Sorry. Oh, what?
I told him as well.
Although saying that, Ash, I've got my phone somewhere.
I said, put your phone on airplane mode.
I sentence you to prison for the rest of your natural life.
It's all right, don't worry.
My phone's on somewhere, so mine could go off at any point.
The thing is, it just makes my editing harder.
Keep it in, Luke. Yeah. So what were I saying then?
Taylor Swift.
Oh, Taylor Swift. So you can listen to her songs, and it's like she wrote that song when she split up with that person, and you can Google that person, and you can find out everything about their relationship, and it's like that kind of fan thing of like seeing her perspective of her experience of that relationship ending or how she felt, and it's really real and really raw. And I thought,
also probably cleverly marketed as well, because the fans will
Taylor bloody Swift, innit? I mean, I'm no flipping Taylor.
But no, I get 100% what you mean.
But it's that thing that I thought, well, actually, she could be sat there thinking, no, I need to make myself nice and smooth and soft for the mass. And I think, no, you hear a lot of women my age who will be like, oh, I need to make myself more acceptable for society. I need to look a certain way, sound a certain way, say the right things, do the right things. And I've got to the point where I'm like, oh, fuck that. No, I'm done. And these are my songs, these are my feelings, and I'm going to sing them, and that's it.
Do you think maybe she was a little bit more polished at the start, but then she's also...
I think if you listen to her music, you can hear it.
It was all like this nice country, weren't it? And then she's kind of gone a bit more rebellish, hasn't she?
Well, yeah, especially after the whole, like, when they, she had to remake all her records and stuff. I think it made her be a little bit more sure of herself, So, and to be honest, if you had that much money, I think I'd be pretty sure of myself as well. But nevertheless, that's a whole other topic. That's the thing though with writing
as well. Sort of her freedom allows her to express herself a little bit more. Yeah. Whereas, like you say, you're at a risk-ish. Depends how you write it, because you can be very sort of, you can tell a lot without telling much at all with songwriting, I find.
I'm not very what's
subtle.
The word? Yeah, that's in a word. Yeah, I'm not very subtle, to the point where I sent a song to my best mate, and straight away she knew exactly what it was about. And I was like, she was like, "Is that about him?" And I was like, "Maybe."
It's like, Chris, you.
I mean, not quite that, but I mean, yeah. If you know me or you know these people, then you're straight away going to know what's gone on or what's going on and stuff like that. But I thought, no, this is part of my expression. It's art. And whether or not that's writing stories, painting pictures, whatever it is, it's a form of expression.
Absolutely.
And I now have got to the point where I am ready to express myself through this form about things that I've experienced and things that I feel and stuff. And I'm ready to do that unapologetically as well, and that's why at the beginning of this section I was like, I've allowed myself, because previously I think I had all this in me, but there was always that fear that we said like, I can't do that, that kind of self-talk has gone now. And I'm like, no, well, I will happily say that. And also, you can get away with saying things in songs that you can't to people's faces.
Have you sort of put together, because have you got a plan to actually go in a studio and record your first track?
That is one of my goals for 2025. Oh, shit. Is to actually... It's close. I've actually got to start doing something. And I'm like, right, I've written a few songs now. It's very nice having them there. And it's nice when I do the odd gig and I've got my guitarist with me or my band and we'll perform, and that's nice. But I think there's something different about having... hearing a song on your device when it's just you and the song. At a gig, lyrics can get lost in the performance, in the atmosphere of the venue and all the other people. But I think when you'll know, like when a song is released and you put it on in your car or you sat there at home and you play that song, you're really concentrating on what's being said and the melody and as a songwriter, you're listening for what that person has done musically. You're like, oh, that's interesting how they've done that. Oh, I like that. Oh, that's interesting. And I think you don't get that until you actually put it out there on a platform to be listened to.
No, definitely,
so that's my goal.
You'll trying to think of what you'll benefit from releasing music, because obviously I started releasing my own music, but it's just that, like I said it to you walk a foot tall almost. I don't know why. You just feel a bit more like, because again, going back to that imposter syndrome, I felt a little bit like with the covers, oh, well, I don't write my own music, so I'm not really a proper musician. And then as soon as that happens, it's like, oh, well, I feel a little bit more legit now. And I think you'll probably feel a little bit more like that as well, to be honest. Obviously, you sent me a little snippet, didn't you, of your tune probably about 2-3 months ago. And generally, it was really good. Like the melody of it was like spot on. And I think a song just gets you or it doesn't. And it was a real groove. It was, and I'd be really interested to hear that in a studio.
And it's what's interesting as well is that I wrote that one. So that one was called Devil's Beats. That was the first song that I'd written. And
see, I can remember it now in my head. So that's always a good thing.
That's a good sign. That's it. Yeah. So, and it's a song that it has quite heavy undertones of the content, but it's quite dancey and quite fun as well. Yeah. And that was about, I was brought up in very strict religion, and then I left that religion, and it was that idea of getting to that age of being like lured and like, well, come and come and have fun this way kind of thing. And but I think more that idea that everybody gets to that point, like you're brought up, your parents, your family, and then you get to that age where you start making your own choices, even though you know that people around you might not agree with those choices, but you're like, well, they're my choices, so I'm just going to go and do them now. It's my turn to make my own.
I've always found through life experience as well, living in certain areas and stuff, is that people that are heavily brought up on religion have that bigger desire, don't they, to push outside them boundaries.
I think it's just because there are a lot of fences, and so it's not so much that I've lived a very wide life afterwards. It's the fact that I then had choice to live on some occasions, maybe 2015.
Right, okay, very specific.
That's another podcast.
Someone's going to be like, 2015?
I know. People will be like, I met her in 2015. It's just having those choices available. And so, again, it was about something that I've experienced. But then what's interesting is I've done 3 more songs after that, and none of them, I think, you might feel differently if you heard them all, follow the same style or genre.
Well, I think that's good. Yeah.
Because I think that's a worry, that once you've done one song and you're like, yep, I've written my song and that's great, that idea, well, now I need to come up with another, but not just a remake of the same idea.
I think some artists do that really well, whereas they sit in that bracket and they all do sound similar, but because they're so good.
If you do it well.
If you do it well. But then, well, it's like my next one is completely different, but I think that's a good thing. And then the next one after that, but I think that is, as long as it still sounds like you and you still, then I don't think it matters particularly. I think people will hopefully move with you through them songs, you know. But I think you should, what my advice to you would be is definitely pay the money to get it done properly, because that's there forever then. And I know you can get it re-recorded and remastered and whatever, but
I agree with that.
I would definitely spend the money and get it done properly, because I think you'll be glad you did it.
Even if it's just me and you who listen to it, I think it's like you said, it's that sense of achievement of being able to say to my kids, I recorded a song, or I was, it was on, it might even still be on there, and those kinds of things, that sort of legacy of, my kids know that I sing, they know that I perform, they've been to gigs and stuff like that, but that idea that I wasn't just doing it to pay the bills, there was actually more to me than that.
Yeah, it feels different to the stuff, because I know you shouldn't say it, but it's a job at the end of the day, what we do with the cover singing, whereas this feels like a little bit more liberating, maybe a little bit more like yourself, you express yourself a little bit more. You can only express yourself so much within the boundaries of covers. Do you get what I mean? Yeah. So it's definitely important to do, I think.
Like people say to me, like, when if ever I'm filling out any kind of official forms and you have to put your occupation, I put singer, and they go, oh, that's exciting.
You've got Spotify.
Yeah, where do you sing? And my stock answer is anywhere they will pay me.
Right, okay.
Like I am not choosy for that
That's
thing
quite
that it's like,
degraded,
it's a job. If
Yeah.
you're putting on a gig and you're downstairs loo and you're willing to pay me, I'll go in and sing there.
Well,
You know,
yeah,
I'm not
fair enough.
fussy
Yeah.
in that sense that it's just I need the money to pay the bills. But then that idea of when you write your own music, you're like, well, actually, my music isn't necessarily suitable for that sort of venue. So you're a little bit more choosy around where you're going to perform your music, depending on what the audience response is. And
I think some people are quite. We've had a few conversations about it. I think some people are quite. They'll throw it in whenever they want, whereas I have to be asked to do it.
Really?
Which has happened more than I'm quite chuffed the amount of times it has happened recently. Oh, go on, do your song.
Oh,
And it's
that
like,
must feel
Oh,
good.
really? But you know, like when the atmosphere is really high and everyone's buzzing, and then you're like, I'm going to do one that I've written now. And it's like,
I know what you mean.
So,
And when you're halfway through it, you're thinking, I really shouldn't have done
yeah,
this. But here I am now,
And you're
I've committed.
Yeah,
You know?
I've done a few originals gigs, small ones, but you feel a little bit more appreciated at them. But I wouldn't really ever want to do my own song at covers gigs because they're very different gigs.
Yeah.
You know, but I have done. And like you say, you're just like, right, let's get to the end. Come on.
Unless it's at a venue that you play all the time and you know, like the regulars know you, you know the staff, and it feels a little bit more comfortable. If they said that then I'd be like, yeah, no problem. But if it was just another gig, I'd be like, maybe not.
No. I'm going to rewind you slightly because
Oh,
I do think it's important to touch on these things with the imposter syndrome, because I've had I still, 5-6 years into gigging now, go through the same process where I get to Monday and I'm starting to slowly worry about Friday and Saturday as the week goes on, and I'm sick with nerves on a Friday. I don't really know why, and I think a lot of it does stem back to that imposter syndrome. Why do you think you have that imposter syndrome? Why? Because I've got my reasons, because I came into it late and I don't feel like an accomplished musician. But where do you think some of your imposter syndrome stem from?
I think because it all depends on like personal experience, isn't it? And I think maybe when I was younger, there was that idea of don't get too big for your boots,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
or like, you know, when you'd be kicking off as a kid and they say, oh, the world doesn't revolve around you, you know. And so it's that idea that being showy is like, oh, she's a right drama queen or whatever. So all those like little comments, they have an impact and they start creating that sort of narrative that you have for yourself. And then when I started doing shows and I got a little bit more confident and I got a little bit more positive feedback, then I had that idea of, oh, maybe I can do this. But then that narrative was still there. So then there's that comparison with others. And so even now, so I would say to people, I don't have a very pretty voice. And it's funny, only recently I've just started having proper singing lessons.
Okay, yeah.
Which I've really enjoying them. And the guy I go to, he's called Sean Ruan, and he's fab, really, really good. And just going to him and hearing his opinion as somebody who I know who's had training, and somebody's opinion who I value and knows what they're talking about, has meant a lot to me, because I've had comments off people at gigs that have really hit hard, and people who've been with me be like, he's pissed, don't listen to him, he don't know what he's on about. But that comment will stick. So for instance, I did a gig with a band a bit ago, and this bloke who works at a music school, but I think he teaches guitar, he doesn't teach vocals or something like that. Anyway, so he was chatting to all the other band members, blah, blah, blah. And this was in the gap between set one and set two. So I had to go back on and sing after this. And we'd just done Janis Joplin, Piece of My Heart.
Okay.
But Janis Joplin doesn't really have a very pretty voice in many ways. So I'd been smashing out this song, giving it welly. And then he come up to me and he said, oh, cracking voice, yeah. Just try and make sure that you're not shouting, because that song, Janis Joplin managed to do it with singing, but I did feel that you tended to shout that song then. Doesn't really sound as good. So, you know, and straight away I was like, okay then. And then he went, have I upset you with that? And I was like, well, a little bit, yeah. You know? And I was like, I was quite honest with him. I was like, I have no problem with somebody giving me constructive criticism or feedback whatsoever. Yeah. That's the only way I'm going to grow. Don't do it in the middle of set one and set two, when now I've got to go back on and sing, feeling this shit about myself.
And now you're just looking at him thinking, what's he thinking?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And my band were all dead nice. They were like, look at him walking off. He can't even walk in a straight line. Don't know what he's talking about. And I should have just been, yeah, actually, dickhead.
Yeah.
You know, but I didn't. That's kept with me. And even now, every time we start singing that song, we start doing that song in the set, I can feel myself. Oh my God, don't shout, don't you know? Because I've heard it before. I've seen people be like, oh, she's a bit shouty. And that's obviously something that I need to work on with my voice, which is why I've then gone to singing lessons to try and control my voice a little bit more. But then I've had other people say, Johnny's fucking Joss. It has to be shouting. Have you heard her sing it? She has to, you've got to give it welly. You can't.
It's really interesting though, because when you say about, and I shouldn't think like this because it's not the right thing to do. You should value everybody's opinion, sort of. Well, you can't really do that, can you? But a lot of the time in the gigs, you'll get compliments all the time at gigs off people, and I honestly don't know if it's just the numbness of doing it for a while. I don't really listen to what anybody says.
I know.
So when you say like, I generally don't really. Someone says, "Oh, you were brilliant tonight." I'm just, "Oh yeah, nice one." Don't think about it, and that's me being honest. Like, whereas if I know there's a musician there or somebody, I'd be like, all right, well that's good then.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, if someone was to be negative,
you'd hear that
I would
one.
definitely hear that one. Yeah,
definitely.
So it's interesting how the brain works like that.
Massively.
I think me and you probably have got similar ways of thinking. I think you're either a glass half empty or glass half full. Maybe you are a glass half full, but with me, I always see more the negative than the positive a lot of the time.
I think a lot of people, even if in day-to-day life I could be quite a positive person, but when it comes to something that you have a little bit of vulnerability about anyway, imposter syndrome, not really been quite good enough, are people enjoying themselves, have I done that song right, all these kinds of things. As soon as that's a little negative, it feels so much bigger. And you'll know when you stood there, people forget that there isn't like a wall between you. And I've had to say over the mic before now, I can see you and I can see, I can hear what you're saying sometimes, you know.
Getting in monitors, that eliminates that.
Honestly, I remember I was so obviously I've gigged throughout all my pregnancies, and I've had to gig being heavily pregnant. And people have been like, should you be gigging like that? And I'm like, what do you think happens when you're self-employed and you're pregnant? Like, do you think you just magically get all this maternity money or something? It's just like any other job. You have to work up until your maternity. So I'd be there like lugging my gear and whatnot. And I remember there was one pub and I went and I'd gone to this gig. I was ready to drop. And I saw this woman. She was probably as close as we are now. And she was like, she said to me, I don't like her in that dress. It's well tight for her. And I felt like saying, I'm fucking pregnant. Everything is tight for me.
That's nice.
And I was just like, oh, why would you say things like that? And then another one, I've seen people like, when you'll do something and you'll see them pull a face or they'll go, and then look back at you, and your mind automatically starts thinking, what have they said? What are they saying about me saying something? What have I done wrong? Do I look right? Is there something wrong? Is it, you automatically start that.
You do develop heavy paranoia.
Oh yeah, but at the same time, you have to get a very thick skin. And one of my favourite memories that was so difficult, but now I hark back to thinking it's not as bad as that. Was I did a gig once, very local to here actually. It was an outdoor gig, and and I was there. My best friend came with me. And I got up on the stage ready to do this gig. I'd done these kinds of gigs like every week over the summer and stuff, a little bit of a sort of residency sort of thing. And all of a sudden, the girl who my ex-boyfriend had been having a long-term affair with turned up with all her mates and sat at the table right in front of me.
Right, let me get this straight. The girl who...
So my boyfriend...
I'm not good with these. Like, might be aunties. Yeah,
so my
boyfriend down for me.
Had been having an affair for ages with a girl at work.
Oh, and she turned up to the gig.
We split up, but then she turned up to the gig. We all her mates, right?
Wow.
So I'm there and I'm thinking, what am I going to do? So,
but she should feel more awkward than you.
Well, I don't know. No, because she was with her tribe. She was all the girls. I was stood on a stage on my bill.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm stood there and they're filming me and all having a laugh on the drinks and Snapchatting me. And so you can imagine in my head, I'm like, they are just ripping me to pieces.
Yeah.
And I've got to stand here and sing Bloody Valerie, like fucking hell. And in my head, I was literally having like an internal dialogue of sing, get paid, go home. Sing, get paid, go home. Sing, get like over, sing, get paid, go home. Sing, get paid, go. And then I thought I had to really develop that thick skin of being like, no, you know what? No, I have as much right to be here as anybody else, and I'm going to use the opportunity. I have a microphone, so I started being a right bitch.
All right.
So Forget You. That's
CeeLo Green.
Yeah. So the real one is Fuck You.
Yeah.
And so I started this song and I was like, so I'm going to sing this next song. I'm going to sing the polite version because it is a family gig. And then literally I looked her right in the eyes and went, but we all know what I'd like to be singing.
And was this a solo gig as well?
Oh yeah, it was just me on a stage. And then, because it was outdoors, it was dead sunny and the sun were right in my eyes. So my mate Jenny was sat at this other table and I couldn't say to her, Jenny, you know that girl? Sir, I couldn't say that.
Right, yeah.
So then halfway through the gig, I went, oh, sorry, sun's in my eyes. Genuinely, the sun was in my eyes. And I went, Jenny, would you do me a favour? Just go to my car and get me sunglasses. They're on the back seat. I could ask you because you've seen the back seat of my car enough times, haven't you? You know?
Did you say that? Yeah.
Too right, yeah.
Whoa.
But in the end, in case she stumbles across this, because she is a local girl,
It's what it is. It's anonymous,
we
isn't it?
ended up weirdly messaging and found out that he screwed her over as much as he screwed me over, and she's actually a very nice woman.
Well, that's the thing with that, isn't it?
So yeah, but it was that thing of, I now, if a gig's really bad, I'm like, it's not as bad as that one. And I got through it. I got every gig that I've done so far, I've got through. I've sung, I got paid, I went home. Bob's your uncle. So you have to develop that very thick skin that I knew full well there was no doubt that they were all laughing at me, taking pictures and videos. And
well, that's what you think.
know.
You never know, will you? But yeah.
Well, they weren't sat there going like, oh my God, she's amazing. What a strong woman for standing there and doing this, even though we're all sat there. They were not saying that at all.
It's good you say that because I've had a few of them where it's like, oh, let's just get to the end of this.
Oh, God,
and it's awful, isn't it?
I know.
Your whole body feels so like tense, doesn't it? You just
and
like,
you're literally being like, right, which are the longest songs that I do?
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
You're counting
do a
down.
medley.
Yeah,
get it over
counting
with.
down how many songs you've got to do, which is really bad. At the same time, you're still trying to put on that persona, and you'll have it where you're like, on a Friday, you'll be like that, and I'll literally sit there in my pajamas or whatever, and I'll be like, the last thing I want to do right now is go and stand up in front of people and pretend to enjoy myself for the next 3 hours. But you do, you go, you put your game face on like you would with any other front facing role. You put that that persona on, and it might be different for women. I put my makeup on like it's war paint. I'm like, put my face on, get ready, and you really have to psych yourself up for it. But then there's other times when it's just so easy and free, and you're like, God, I'm having a fucking great time.
No, it is. I mean, I feel like we're painting a bad light on what we do.
I know, this is
it's like therapy, this, isn't it? So it's
too right,
and
you hope that the people watching it are like, yep, I feel that.
That's what we want, isn't it? But it's one of them. I always feel like the reason I get nervous as well is because, let's say, for example, the Dog and Duck, which isn't a pub. I've made that pub up, but you go there and it's a great gig. You can't then expect that to be a great gig the next time, can you? So I don't know why, it just never works out that way, does it? So you could have a really bad gig and then you're like, I don't want to go there again. I'm booked in, I don't want to go. And then you go and it's the best gig ever.
Yeah.
I think that's why it's difficult, because every gig, unless you've got your really local ones where you know where you're setting up, and because I find that the stress of the gig isn't actually the gig a lot of the time. It's actually getting there, having your space ready, sort of, sometimes you have to move people and that's always awkward. Like, it's actually, once you set up and going, that's the easy part almost. Well, sometimes. But I feel like the consistency with it isn't there always. So
I'm not too bad with that, because I did those years where I'd literally just get an email with an address and a time and a fee, and I'd just turn up and people would say like, oh, where you gigging tonight? I'm like, I don't know till I put it in my sat nav. Like, and I've never been to these places before. Not even like, oh, I know the one. Yeah, it's on the corner. Never been to them whatsoever. So that doesn't bother me as much because I've just done it in time after time after time.
Yeah, so you're just like, so you're not thinking about that then as you go in. You're just like, is what it is.
Yeah,
you're not thinking of scenarios before you get there.
Not usually, no.
Because I do that.
No. What ifs? Like, what if this and what if that?
What if they don't have the space ready? And what if there's nobody in the pub? And then they go, oh, you may as well go home. Like all that sort of stuff. So, but
sometimes I've had that where they've said like, oh, there's not that many in, and then I've been like, well, I still want paying.
Yeah, no, but you feel awkward saying that, don't you? So it's that standoff, innit?
Oh no, I've just come to terms with the fact.
Well, Lee's the same. Lee very much just goes, no, I'm getting paid. Well, I'll be like, oh no.
Sometimes if I've done nothing or whatever, I'll say, well, pay me this much, because I'm like, well, I haven't actually done out, or I've done it like half a set, and I'll be like, well, no, I want something. You can't just not pay, No. But then again, it's interesting. A little bit of a difficult subject maybe, but actually one that's probably quite topical for this sort of arena, if you will. That idea of what you charge, your fees and stuff. I find that really difficult because when pubs say like, well, how much do you charge? And you know what they're going to say, oh, it's out of my budget, or whatever, you know, like, oh, we can't stretch that, or, you know. And so I tend to, I've got this thing now where I'll say like, well, if it's just a one-off gig, I'll charge you X amount. Yeah. But if you give me 3-4 dates over the course of the year, I'll knock it down to such an amount. Yeah. And they're like, oh, all right. Which I'm like, well, that's winner, because that means that I know that I've got those gigs coming in, so I can already budget that I've got that money coming in that month. Yeah. So happy days. Yeah. And a lot of pubs prefer that because they're like, well, again, we know that we've got somebody booked in those times and we're saving that little bit of money than if we just had you on a one-off. Yeah. So I tend to do that, but it's that thing of like, well, you don't want to sell yourself too short, but then you don't want to price yourself over what the general people are doing.
And then the expectation goes up or whatever. You know?
But then you're like, no, actually, I am worth that much. You know, I've not just started out. I've been doing this a long time. I am worth that.
It is difficult to find that balance.
It is. It's really hard, yeah.
Yeah, no, it really is. I think the beauty, and you'll have it as well, is when, and we've spoke about this before, but when they come to you because you feel like you hold the cards a little bit more, they want you. So, all right, well, you want me then? Okay, well, I'll charge my normal price then. Yeah. Whereas if you're like going to them, I feel like they have a little bit more power, don't they? Because it's like, please give me a gig. I'll, you know, almost. Please, you get what I mean?
Yeah, and I've had that through doing stuff like, I know other artists don't like it, which I totally get, but I enjoy doing a lot of like the live events like Chorley Live and Longton Live, stuff like that. I enjoy them. I find them quite good fun. And I found that I've then more often than not got gigs from it and regular gigs from pubs who've seen me. Because again, going back to that idea that I'm really bad on social media, that people say like, oh, have you got any videos? And I'm like, no, don't have any videos. I don't really have that many pictures. I'm really crap. But then I'm like, but if you've seen me at a gig, I always try and give my A game. And sometimes like when I'm feeling a bit rough, my husband would be like, listen, just hold it back a bit tonight. Don't do any of the big stuff. And I'm like, I can't. I just can't. I have
don't know
to.
Who's watching all
yeah,
this,
he once said to me, like, you don't have to play every gig like it's fucking Wembley, you know. And I'm like, I do. Of course, you know, because I feel like unless I'm doing my best, then I'm like, I must be shit. I'm not, you know, it's.
And I think that maybe sparks back to how the imposter syndrome actually does have its benefits as well, because, you know, if you do have these insecurities, it almost pushes you on, doesn't it?
Well, that's it. That's the positive side of nerves, isn't it? Yeah. That it fuels you to keep pushing and working harder and trying to achieve more. Whereas if it was just like, nah, you know, and every now and again I have had a gig where I've been a bit like, you know, and you think, well, I'll scrape through that one, but you know, that's that. And I've been really honest with audiences and I've been like, right then guys, you know, when you go to work and you're just struggling and you're not firing on all cylinders. Well, today this is my job and I am not firing on all cylinders, so you might just have to bear with me. But I've still tried to give it everything I've got. Yeah. Because I just don't feel like I can't not sort of thing, you know. And
What's your boundary at a gig then in terms of crowd interaction?
I was going to say I've got a lot.
we spoke earlier about the Christmas period. I feel like the boundaries also because of the Christmas parties, and like you say, people that don't go out as much going out, the boundaries get pushed a little bit. I try and put a guitar case in the way of me sometimes, which is the shittest barrier you can imagine.
Well, that's it. I don't have anything. I don't have any kind of, but
So maybe speak a little bit about some of the interactions you've had with punters that haven't gone so well and how you've put plans in place after that maybe to stop certain stuff from happening. Because you are on your own, very vulnerable.
This is an interesting one, especially when it comes to being a woman on my own. When I first started out, the amount of times I'd go to a gig on my own and people would say, Where's your husband? Where's your dad? And I'm like, you know, and at the time they'd say like, where's your husband? I'm like, I ain't got one, you know. And I'd be like, that idea that a woman would be going out doing this on her own. I was like, oh, come off it. So I think there's a lot of that. around there are those vulnerabilities, and it's a difficult one when you get people at the end saying, oh, do you want any help with your gear? And I'm like, that's very kind. First of all, don't touch my gear, because the amount of times you're going to fuck it up. And the other day I had it, someone's messed my bloody stand up because they've tightened it too tight. I'm ripping. But you'll have had it,
do it quicker, just doing it yourself.
And so you're like, it's very kind. But then at the same time, I've had a few instances where I've thought, I don't feel comfortable walking to my car with this man carrying my speakers. I don't feel, when you've had to park round the corner at night
really
or whatever.
Interesting that, because it's not something, and it's sad, that's the society we live in, but I don't really have to think about
You've
that.
not thought that,
and usually I've got my dad with me as well, and my dad's not a big guy or anything, but I'm saying it's completely different, innit? We do the same job, but you're having to think completely different things.
Yeah,
to what I do.
even things like what I wear. So I've got to pick something that makes me feel good, but I also have a lot of and this is it could just be that I'm a woman, or it could just be me personally, but that idea that I feel like if I was younger and thinner, I would have more value in the gigging scene, if you will.
Even though actually that's got nothing to do with...
Oh, I know. But you do. When you see like young girls just starting out and they've got amazing voices and they're wearing all the right clothes and they're singing all the right songs, and you think, oh, shit, I'm getting to that point where I'm like that old bird that they wheel out every now and again. But you have those kinds of insecurities. So it's like, right, I want to wear something that still is fun and is like giving off the Saturday night fun vibes that I feel good in, but also isn't too much so as to get leery blokes who, because you'll have it where people think that because you're doing this job, you are automatically open to any conversation, physical touch, people being close to you, and you're like, no, I'm still a person. I'm still a human being,
it's
just like I would
your
be.
Missus Fun Time almost.
Yeah, she's open to that's it. She, and it's like when you go to the bar. If I just walked to the bar any other time, people probably wouldn't speak to me. They wouldn't. But because they've just seen me song, they'll say, oh, you're right, let's do chat, which is lovely. And I love a good chat. So I'm all up for that. But at the same time, I am still aware of like, I don't want to chat too much to make you think that I want to be really good friends with you. And it's a really difficult one. I had a guy the other day come up to me, said that he'd seen me at my last gig at a venue, seen that I was playing again, so came again on his own. And chatted to me all the way through the break. It was very nice. And then was like asking for my Instagram and saying, oh, I'll send you, he was a guitarist, he was like, I'll send you some, some melodies I've written, this, that, the other. And I was like, all right, great. But I was like, but I want to be friendly because that's the persona you've got to put on. I want to be open because for all I know, you could be somebody who's really going to help me progress in my music. But at the same time, you could also be an absolute psychopath. And I'm allowing you to converse with me and giving you my social media details. You're following me. And it's that difficult thing that you are opening yourself up to it as a woman. It's as anybody really. But I feel
it's interesting because if you look at it from the other way around, if a bloke chats to me, and this is just society, this is just life. It's not sexism or anything. But if I stand and talk to a bloke at the bar, chances are he's not going to fancy me or want to pursue anything.
I don't know, Luke. You're a
you know what I
man,
mean, though? Whereas with women, you've always got to have that switched on.
But that's life. That is
life.
But
that's
it's just
anything, isn't it?
That's life for a woman, but also it's magnified in the job because then I am open in that idea that if there's 5 women stood at a bar, a guy is probably more likely to talk to me because he's just seen me sing in the corner and I look fun and friendly and a bit of a goer.
I get it.
Because I've been dancing around and there's that freedom to stare at me. Society says now, quite rightly, men do not stare at women. It is creepy and weird. But if she stood singing, you ogle as much as you want, mate, because you're allowed, because she's saying you can.
Don't make it.
No, not at all. And you can see what they're saying. You can see, and that I find quite difficult because you are opening yourself up to that. And I suppose like not just that when you're saying about like boundaries with crowds. If people come anywhere near me, I'm very clear. I had it the other night whatever I say to them, I say over the microphone. I don't and I don't go, oh, no. I'll say, no, this is my space. Can you please leave me?
So everyone knows.
Yeah. Because I think I need that backup.
Yeah.
And I had it the other day. A guy came up and I was singing and he came up to me and put his arm around me and was like, oh, and I was like, oh, can you not touch me, please?
Yeah.
Can you this is my space. You go back over to the bar. And I kind of made a joke of it. But I thought,
but also make a bit of a prat out of him as well, so he then clears off.
Well, also that idea that if it did get more, everyone can hear, and they can hear if I need the landlord to come and get rid of him.
Yeah, okay.
So I'm very, I don't I don't laugh it off anymore. I'm like, fuck off, get out of my space.
I'm going to flip that round then, because we spoke about how men, being a woman, will pursue things. Also, if I was to be like that, aggressive, because I'm a male, I could easily end up in a punch-up as well.
Oh, yeah.
So it for me, sometimes I have to not be a bit like that and almost laugh it off.
Oh, yeah.
Because otherwise it can be like, fucking what?
Because I bet, let's be honest, on the flip side of this, I bet if you're at a gig, especially this time of year, and you get a group of women who've all been on Prosecco all day, that, I have been out with my mates. I know what we can be like, and there are times when I'm sit there and I think, God, if that behaviour was switched genders, that would completely be unacceptable.
Yeah.
And so I know we're getting quite deep now, but it's that idea of just doesn't really matter about the gender. It's just respecting somebody's he is an individual.
Definitely.
So in that way, that because you'll have it, women will still come up to you and be like, oh, and they'll touch you and whatnot, and you're like,
it's older women usually.
Yeah. And it's awkward. You don't want to be rude.
No.
You don't want to come across aggressive or standoffish, because you're still there to perform and entertain. But at the same time, we all still have our right to be able to say, please don't touch me, please don't get too close to me, and be clear about that. And people realise that just because you are singing does not mean you are free, open game to somebody just coming right,
It's interesting because I went into a gig, this was last week or 2 weeks ago, and you'll have probably had it where as soon as you get in the venue, it's, oh, do you do karaoke? Oh, can I get up and do a tune with you? Can my mate do a tune? And you're like, fuck's sake, this is going to be a long night, this, and you're just like, no, I don't take requests. Oh, what? And it's all that. And I think you'd made a comment before, I can't remember what it was about. I've basically had my friend come in between my sets and he's a poet.
Oh,
but
right.
he does interesting, funny poets. They're a bit like working men's club kind of things. And for some reason, they thought I had a stand-up comedian coming in.
Right.
So they were just on at him. I thought you was a stand-up comedian. And just going on and on and on. And it's like, you walk into some venues sometimes, you're like, oh, no.
I had it the other night.
Get paid, get laid, get out.
Get paid, get laid. Well, that's a decent gig. Edit that out.
I thought that was the saying.
Get paid, no, sing, get paid, go home.
Yeah.
Sing. Anyway, that's a whole other topic of conversation. No, about that, I find it really difficult because I can understand if I'm stood there with my mic and it's just me holding a mic. I've not got a mic stand, I've not got a guitar or anything.
Yeah.
Just holding a mic. Yeah. Somebody could walk in there, oh, it's karaoke.
Yeah.
But then I hope that as I continue performing, that they would see oh, she's got a bit more craft than Susan who smashes out I Will
People
Survive
don't
on a
see
Friday
it
night.
that way, though.
So the other day, literally at my gig the other day, a bloke came right up to me and said, can I put my song in? And I went, I'm sorry, what? And he went, can I put my name down for the next song?
Oh, no.
And he was like, it's karaoke, isn't it? And over at the mic, I went, I beg your pardon. And all these people. And I was like, he's just asked me if it's bloody karaoke. And I was obviously far more offended than and he's like, I'm really sorry, I didn't mean anything like that. It was like, there was a part of me that was like, the audacity. Yeah. But I was like, oh, it's not really his fault. He's just waltzed in and I'm stood there. You
call it out because it's a talent, isn't it, what we do,
I was like, yeah. And it's that thing that I'm like, if only you knew the shit I've had to go through to get to be this comfortable to be able to sing for an hour and a half 3 nights a week, because it's the stamina as well.
Absolutely.
And I've had a lot of friends who I've known through shows who started singing and they've said to me how do you do it? Because again, it's not just about being a good singer, it's about having that stamina to be able to bring your A game, possibly Thursday, Friday, twice on a Saturday, once on a Sunday. it takes a lot.
Yeah.
You know, it really does. But
Well, I've got a history in athletics and stuff, and obviously that's very demanding. But there's nothing quite like the after of a gig. I always think it's knackering. It's absolutely exhausting.
Emotionally, you've been high on adrenaline all that time,
and you do get that. Say like you gigged Friday, Saturday. That's Sunday. I sometimes feel a bit miserable. Like sometimes, like after like I don't know. It must just be the pure exhaustion of it all. And we're not making out with these big artists or anything, but
it just takes a lot.
But it's probably more tiring than what the big artists are because they're not got. Your brain's constantly scanning for different things all the time. Am I in tune? Am I playing the right?
Because you're responsible for everything.
Yeah. Or are they enjoying it? You know, what's he thinking? What are they thinking? Oh, he's just shook his head over there, like you're saying.
You do.
Your brain's probably scanning 100 things at once.
Yeah.
Like, you know, what's the words to that? There's 100 things you're thinking about in one moment when you do a gig. And you won't think there would be, but there is. You know, it's. Do
you have any like little routines like after a gig to sort of like try and calm yourself down?
Not usually. I know some people do like cool downs and stuff, don't they? But, you know, like straw work and all that. But nah.
Oh yeah, I've seen them. I need
do
to
you
get
warm
myself
up or not?
Yeah. No, that's interesting because I never used to.
Right.
Never used to warm up.
You notice a difference? Or,
yeah, massively. And it's not that I didn't warm up because I didn't think I needed to. I didn't know how. And I felt like if I warmed up, I was thinking too much of myself. Like, I'm not that good that I need to warm up. And it's like, how daft. You know, like you'd think, well, you know, Susan, who's going to run her first 5K, needs to warm up before a run just as much as, I mean, Iron Man needs to do it before they do. That was always
my mindset, so I got in with it straight away.
So now I always warm up, and the amount of people who don't, and it blows my mind because I can totally tell a difference massively. And all I do is find a warm up on Spotify, whack it on in the car as I'm driving there, and you know, and it makes such a difference, real difference.
You say you got a singing teacher now, haven't you? You should get him to do a specific warm up for.
So yeah, he tells me before at my singing lesson, he does stuff with me that I'm like, really? You know, like,
you got to sit in the car and do
like,
it. Haven't you?
Really weird things. But then, and I'll say to him, why am I doing that? You know, I'm probably a really annoying student in the fact I want to know why. And he's like, because it's making sure that the sound is channeled here, or you're pushing that sound forward, or, you know. And so you're like, all right, so that's the reason why. So that's really good. Because even something as basic as I used to hate doing lip twirls. And I couldn't do them for ages. And I was like, you know. And so now.
You have to start off like that.
Yeah. But now I'm like, I can totally see that it really helps get you to push that sound forward and stuff, and just little things like that that I'm like, God, the idea of me now just going dry into a gig with no warm up scares the living daylights out of me.
Well, I think a lot of my flaws are that I struggle to relax when singing, so I have to do a lot of stuff that's like yawny and like relaxy because my default is to kind of push it a bit and neck veins on neck and all that.
Yeah, I do.
So I kind of have to try and find where, but it's not always easy to go back to that default, especially with the stress of a gig as well. It's not easy to do it at home, but when you're at the gig, you start to go back to the defaults a bit. So
I don't tend to cool down. I probably should do, but I know whenever I drive home, I always put classic FM on, because it has no words. Because if there's a song with words, I tend to start thinking of the words. I tend to like sing along a bit. So I've always done it. I always put classic FM on. It's lovely because at night they do like chill out classics or whatever. So I put classic FM on, and then when I get home, I'll have a cup of tea, maybe a bit of toast, and I try and have. You'll find like I can't go straight to bed because I'm too wired, you know. Yeah. So I'm like, I need just that little bit of time just to sit. And often the drive home is that. But if not, I'd still need to just sit before I go to bed, because if I go to bed, I'm still wired and I'm scrolling or whatever, you know.
Yeah. So. It is a great feeling though when you get back in the car and you've done it and you're like, I don't know if you used to listen. Do you know who Alan Beswick is? Do you ever listen to him? BBC Radio Lancashire used to be, because obviously you're coming back from your gig, about 10, 11, depending on the night. And it was like one of them calling shows, like a bit like Alan Partridge. Oh, it was brilliant.
I love it.
Put that on and it's like these piss heads at like 11 o'clock at night ringing in. I used to love that, but it's gone now.
God.
But that used to be I used to look forward to that at the end of the gig.
Yeah, that little bit, yeah.
They'd be like, what, you know, they'd be talking about, I don't know, like evolution or whatever, so, and they're just pissed out their head, basically, you know, religion and everything, you know, and it'd be like,
I love that.
Brilliant, yeah. So, go on, you continue.
No, I find that really interesting, like those little routines that people have. And I think as well, when everybody's got certain songs in their set that they're like, if I'm not feeling it, I know I can sing that one and it's still going to be good or whatever. And then everyone has that song where they're like, right, wait for this one. Everyone has that one that you know inside out, and you know is your best of your best or whatever. And and that's I like that. I like knowing what songs, and that's one thing I really struggle with, the fact that because you're always gigging, you don't get to see other singers, and I love seeing other singers. Yeah. Partly because it's entertaining, but also to be like, what songs do they do? What have they got on their set list? And you watch them and you're like, oh, never thought of doing that one. I'll put that on my set list. And I find it really, really interesting.
No, it is. But then do you get that same thing you were saying before about you had to unfollow people on social media because you don't like them or you feeling like they're better than you? I sometimes get that when I watch other acts and I wish I didn't have it.
I feel like when I'm in the audience, I am the most supportive,
well, that's
like
good.
hockey mum of because I know what it's like. Because I'm like, well, actually, I know that in this situation they are the vulnerable one, and I am the one who's going to be supporting them. Whereas all the other audience members who aren't singers don't realise that. They think they've got the power because and you're like, no, we have, because we're here to be clapping and whooping and smiling and singing and dancing, and because you'll know that your gig is only as good as your audience is. When you've got a shit audience, you're like, fucking hell, what am I? But as soon as your audience engage with you and give you something to work with, you're bouncing off each other and your gig just flows so nicely.
You are working with waves all the time in gigs, aren't you?
It's like, massively.
Yeah, it is. It's it might be that your gig starts off quiet and then you get a wave of people come in and then you get that lift and your performance does automatically go up, doesn't it?
Or you do one song and you're like, so that's what you're into. Right, okay, bear with. So you're always trying to read them. Yeah. But no, if ever I watch other artists, I'm always like, yes, even if I think the shit, I'm like, yeah, go on, woo, because I'm like, I know how much it has taken you to get up and do what you're doing right there. Yeah. It's a big deal.
I'm very much like that, but at the same time, I'm half thinking in my head like, they're playing the guitar a lot better than I am and stuff like that. And I always have to like, I feel like I could be better at that or wish I wasn't like that, because actually it would just be nice to sit and enjoy an act, wouldn't it? Yeah. And just enjoy it. And they were brilliant then, but sometimes if they're doing the same thing as me, I can't fully enjoy it because I'm like...
If they do the same, like a song that you do, you're like, oh, how do they do it?
It's an annoying like default trait to have, innit?
Because it's taken that just pure audience-ness away, because you know the inner workings, so you're watching them. Yeah. And it's interesting that, because in my band, some of them haven't gigged very often, and they're like, I hate it when I can see people like air guitar or like drumming along or whatever, because they see it as them like correcting them, like, no, this is how you're meant to do it or whatever, and I'm like, no, they're doing it because they're enjoying themselves. And they're like joining in. It's like when you see people singing along, they're singing along because they're enjoying their song. They're not singing along to be like, I think you'll find this is how you do it. Or they're just enjoying themselves. So it's but I can see that now, but I know that when I first started, I'd have been shit scared if people started singing. Although, do you hate it? I fucking hate this.
This is just pure therapy, this, isn't
it? I know it is, just invented it. How annoying is it when you're singing a song and you're like, I know this song and I'm singing it and off we go. And then some fucker who thinks they're well good comes and sits right near you and starts belting it out as loud as they can, hoping that you're going to go, oh my God, you're an amazing singer.
Come join me.
Come and join me. And you're like, fuck off, I'm not going to do that. This is my job. I'm here to get paid, and that's it, But it's like they're doing it to be noticed, to be like, I can sing. And I'm like, that is brilliant, bang on, good for you, you can sing, but not right now. It right winds me up.
I've had it once or twice where, and I always feel like if you're a good musician or of relative standard, you would never do this. But I've had it where, my friend can sing, can he sing during your break or whatever? And I'm like, I've let it happen every now and again.
Oh God, no.
And
what if they're better than you?
Well, they're not. In the past, they haven't been, or I haven't thought it, but everyone's loving it because it's their mate and everything. Yeah. And it just makes you feel like pure shit. And then you get back on, and it's like they weren't very good, but everyone's like, oh, he's the proper singer. I've only done that. I think if I've got a friend of mine in the audience, I'd be like, come and do a song with me. Go on. Because I know them and they're my friend and it's my gig. I can do what I want. Yeah. But then there's only, I think, been one time when I let somebody get up and sing who I didn't know as well. And it was when, do you know Natalie Pilkington? Oh, yeah.
So she came to one of my gigs with all the mates and I was shitting myself. I was like, oh, fuck. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to sing in front of Natalie Pilkington. What am I going to do? And she was so nice and her mates were having a great time. And so I was like, yeah, you can sing a song because that's right. Because I knew she wasn't going to be shit and all that. And it was at the end and all the mates were having a time. So that was fine. But if some randomer asked if bloody Colin with 3 teeth in corner could bash out, blooming Jerry Cinnamon, I'd be like, nah, mate.
I've done it at a private party, because the private parties are work because you're penned in, aren't you?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, my mate's a singer and that, and they're like stood there a bit like in corner. Then they'll come on and do some shit rendition of Arctic Monkeys or Oasis or something, and you're like, yeah, fuck. And then they're the best thing since sliced bread, and you're just like, right, okay, then whatever.
I know. Great. How do I bring this back now?
yeah.
Yeah, I get that.
So what have we got going forward then for you? So a bit busy for the rest of the year, and then are you going to focus on getting in the studio?
Yeah, so I want to write more.
Yeah.
I want to write loads more songs. I've got so much more shit going on in my head that I can write about. And yeah, I'd like to get something recorded. I'd like to get it online to be like, that's it. I've achieved that. It's done. You know?
It'd be brilliant,
So that's sort of like my music goal for next year. All from January, it's going to be quite emotional. For the first time in about 6 years, I will not have a baby at home with me. All my children will be in full-time education.
Oh, wow.
Big move.
Yeah.
Which is worrying, because then I know my husband's like, so do you think you might be able to get a proper job now? And I'm like, oh, shit. So I think I probably will get like a little bit of a part-time something during the day, but I'll still gig, but it will just take that pressure off. Going back to before when it was like saying yes to every gig, I think I'm going to be a little bit more selective and be like, actually, no, I'm not going to do that gig because I've got a lot on the day before or whatever, to not pushing myself that much, not stretching myself so that I can enjoy my gigs more. So I think writing more. And hopefully doing more with my band and my guitarist in the band. I say this, my husband's like, don't join another fucking band, because I can't say no, because it's exciting,
So is
isn't
this
it?
a covers band or originals band?
So I mean, I'll plug them all while I'm here, shouldn't I? So I'm in a band called Drop Dead Red, and we do covers, but we started writing as well. And so we do stuff like Skunk Nancy, PJ Harvey, the Noisettes, you know, a good mix of stuff.
Yeah.
So that's us. And then, technically, my husband doesn't know this. He thinks I'm just a dep, but actually, I have officially joined the band. So I now front a soul band as well.
Oh, wow. Nice.
And I did that in the past. I used to sing in a soul band called Kathy and the Hornbeats.
Wow, that's cool.
They were well good. Yeah. Full horn section, it were great. So now I'm front a band over in Manchester called Sold Out. So they don't gig very often, but when they do, it's like big gigs because there's so many of them, you know. So doing that. And then I'm in a duo with a guitarist, and we're called Atlantic 252. Nice. And we do like 80s, 90s big bangers.
Right,
like we do like Tears for Fears or like Tell It to My Heart, you know, all that, you know, like Whitney Houston, whatever, like big, you know, but just me and guitar, which is quite good. And then the guitarist from my band, we've started doing stuff acoustic, just us two. Again, like writing stuff as well. And so I've got enough projects.
How do you find balancing? And there's quite a lot of questions I want to ask you around this, but how do you find it balancing? Obviously, getting the good money for yourself at the solo gigs, but then it's also nowhere near as enjoyable as playing with a band.
And that was why I stopped with the other band mainly, because at the end of a gig where I'd practice all the songs, I'd go to rehearsals, I'd drive to the gig, even though I'm a singer, I always make sure I try and help set up. I pack down everybody, you know, I help everybody. And then I'd be like, oh, thanks for my 30 quid. That's really nice. Because we've had to split it between everyone.
And
you're
you've
like,
lost a night of gigging
that's
as well.
It.
Lost,
and
but you know what I mean.
So when I joined Drop Dead Red, I was very clear that I was like, I'm very much want to be in a band because I love it. Always love playing to live music. But I'm only going to do like one a month with the band, because it's that understanding that every night that I am with them, I'm missing out on a much bigger chunk of money that's just for myself. Yeah. And so it is that balance. And so I think that's the other silver lining of in the new year, when I can take that pressure off my gigs, because I'll have hopefully at some point, I'll have another income stream from a proper job, that I can take that pressure off. So I can be like, actually, of my 3 or 4 gigs a month, I can do a duo gig or a band gig so that I can really enjoy it more, and use it more for what I enjoy rather than just I'll take any job going because I need to pay my bills, you know. So
I think you need to hold on to the band stuff as well, because I find I can't get any musicians even in a room.
Oh,
really.
yeah, it's well hard,
so
isn't it?
to actually, I mean, I wanted to put a band together for my original stuff. I know I've only got one tune out at the minute, but there's more to come. But I can't
It's
even
hard,
get
innit?
people in the room.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I can't make it tonight. It's
Yeah.
happened for the fourth time. So fair play for getting a band
Yeah.
together, because there seems a lot of bands, but I can never get in one. So
Well, our original lineup, there were 3 women and 2 blokes, and then we lost our rhythm guitarist, and then our bassist, she's gone, and so there's 3. So we're on the hunt for another bassist, and that's our main thing, that we're like, yeah, he has to play bass, but he can't be a dickhead.
No.
And we need somebody who's going to turn up when they
just
say they're
turn
going
up,
to turn
yeah.
up, come to practice, learn the songs, you know. And that's the difficult thing, that when you're, like any job, you know, there's always someone in the office that you're like, oh, fucking
Yeah.
So when you're getting to choose who you're in a band with and it's your spare time, you need to be able to get on with them, and you need to be able to work well with them.
Well, I've been lucky because my granddad gigs with me, and that's
Exactly.
a real novelty, because that doesn't happen often, does it?
Yeah.
So that's been nice, and also I do gig with Lee every now and again.
Yeah, never mind.
So that's good. But I would like, never mind. Is that what you said?
Edit that out.
No, I'm gonna clip that up. Never mind. So he plays lead guitar and stuff like. We've only done a few, to be fair, recently, but it does just break it up. It really does just break it up.
Yeah,
you know?
I feel like it's essentially bad. It's like company as well. It's having someone else to bounce off, isn't it?
Yeah.
That when you're on your own, like you said, you're thinking of everything, but having someone else who's having the odd idea of like, oh, let's do this song next. All right, yeah, okay. And it just takes that little bit of pressure off, and you can just enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
Especially if they're your friend and you get on with them and stuff.
Absolutely.
I used to play with Jake Heaton, and we used to be. We used to be in a duo together, and we'd do gigs when he was dead young. And I loved it, absolutely loved it. Obviously, he's far too cool for me now.
Yeah, he's got that vibe.
I can say that because I say that to his face. But we really worked really well together because of that. We just knew what one another were going to do, and we responded really well, and we just had a lot of fun together. And I loved gigging with him. It was always so much fun, and so I think it's so important within finding a band or someone else to work with that you are actually going to get on with them, and you're going to work well together. Because if you don't gel,
well, it's that reliability as well.
Just not happening.
If they're like, oh, I can't make it to gig tonight, or can't make it to practice tonight, then. You're like, great, it's not good enough, is it? But saying that though, saying that with the band that I'm in now, we're all very understanding of the fact that it is our spare time, and we're all at an age now, we've all got families. Yeah.
So we are very understanding of, look, little Sarah's at gymnastics till 8. I can't get there. We're like, that's fine, don't worry. So we're very accommodating of one another's lives, because we understand that that's the case.
Well, that's good, building that trust, isn't it?
But I think it's difficult when then you've got somebody who you like, that they just can't be asked leaving the house, and you're like, I totally get it. We've all been there, and I think you'd prefer someone to say, I've had a rough day, I can't be asked.
No one ever does say that.
Rather than being like, oh, I've had this happen, I've had that happen, and you're like, have you?
Yeah.
It's really difficult, isn't it?
Yeah,
So
it really is.
so I totally get that, and that's when you think, oh, I'll just gig on my own. It's just easier.
Yeah.
But it's just not as fun.
It's not as fun.
It isn't at all.
I feel like we could do a part 2 here. We could, there's so much more I want to ask you, but
God.
it's gonna have to
Talk
take
for
some
ages.
sort of stop.
Sorry.
But maybe we will get you on for a part 2. I reckon it'd be good. There was one more thing I wanted to ask you, but it has slipped my mind. Oh yeah, that's it.
Oh, go on.
So you talk about like you don't get to see other musicians because it very much is in and out kind of job. You don't get to see anybody else. What would you like to see from the music community, music world?
Oh, well.
To get people more, what do you think has to happen, or how do you think it can change?
What I'd love, like when if you're a business person, they have like networking meetings and stuff. Yeah. Where you rock up to a meeting at like 7 a.m, have like a little bit of a brainstorm and whatnot, and then you all go off and run your businesses, and you all support each other and plug each other's gigs and stuff like that. And I find that I have like a little pot of friends who are singers, and I know that if for a reason I can't make a gig, or something's come up where it's somebody's asked me to do a gig and I'm like, I'm already booked or whatever, I'll say, oh, but I've got somebody who can, and I try and support those friends who are in a similar position. So I try and say, oh, they could do the gig, or like, oh, do you not play guitar? Oh, well, actually, I know a guy who does play guitar. But so I try and do that as much as I can, because there will be times when I need somebody's help, if I need a lead, or or if when I come to record, look, where have you been? What advice would you give me? That kind of thing. And I feel like there needs to be, maybe this is our future venture. There needs to be some sort of like network of people who do our job, where you can actually get together and have these sessions where you're able to vent about your job, support one another. Because in any other job, you have like supervision with your boss, where you can discuss what's happened, learn from stuff, take ideas from other people to better practice and whatever. And I feel like there's no time for us to do that, but also there's always that kind of sense of competition. And I was going to
ask you that. Do you think something like that would just end up turning into some sort of cock off?
I don't know.
For want of a better word.
I think it depends on who it is. And I think if somebody would use that as a, well, here I am, you'd be like, well, you're a diva. You're not welcome in this group. I would like it to be a group where we are all very supportive of one another's strengths, talents, genres, whatever they are, and support one another. And if anybody isn't in that kind of vein, well, jog on. You're not one of us, kind of thing. But I think I think that's a real thing that's missing. Even like, I always think, well, I don't get a Christmas do because I don't really have anyone to work with, but I'm like, but I'd love to go out.
Your Christmas do is a gig.
Exactly, yeah. But that kind of thing, that you haven't got that sense of team. But I try and build it where I know that I've got a few singers, and they do it with me as well. They'll be like, Kathy, are you available on this date? Because I've been offered a gig and I can't do it. And I'd be like, oh, winner, great. Thanks so much. I really appreciate it. So really helping one another out. And I feel like within maybe just like locally, that industry, I think it would be, and I know that's maybe what an agent might try and do, but I think they're in it for
money for it.
Whereas that idea of, you know what, we're just going to meet, or on a whenever, and just be able to speak, and we'll maybe have like a topic for that meet of like, how do people feel about gear? Has anyone got any new gear that's really good, that works really well, or because it's stuff like that. Like, I haven't got time to keep a scan of what's coming out, what's good, what works well, or whatever. And so if something of mine breaks and I need to buy a new one, I'm like, oh, fucking hell. So then I ring my mate who I know, what would you recommend that, what's good, or, and so it's having that, oh, well, actually, I use this mic and that works really well. And, oh, I've just got these new lights, they're really good.
But you've got to choose your people carefully for that, because that can turn into a cock off as well, because you get people going, oh, well, I have the such and such a thing, and you look at it and it's $2,000.
I've used Daddy's credit card to buy this latest one, and you're like, well, good for you, mate.
You've got to be careful with the people you choose for that.
You have.
You really have.
But that's like in life, isn't it?
Life, it really is. Well, I'll open the offer if anyone wants to come to this podcast studio. I know it's quite small, but we've got a fridge, we've got some seating.
Cozy as fuck.
We can
Just
come.
for me, you and Lee.
On
the beers, just like, oh, fucking like shit, innit?
The podcast studio is open for therapy and counselling.
Self-help groups for singers.
Brilliant. It's going to happen at some point.
Telling you.
But we have to be able to record it, so. And it has to be able to go out on YouTube.
We can't then.
Right, we're gonna call it there, because I do generally want to get you back on again, because there's so much more we could talk about, and it'd be nice to get Lee on as well, and we can have another chat. Right, I've just thought of something now as we finish. Right, so we're starting a new. I don't know if do you watch podcasts much or not really? Stephen Bartlett. I'm stealing this from. I probably shouldn't have said that. I probably just said I'm stealing it from a podcast. He does this thing at the end of his episodes.
Come with your cease and desist
order. With his big lawyers.
Yeah, well.
He's
Just edit that bit out. Start again.
So I got this idea from a podcast, a local music podcast. And basically, it's we're going to do it where you write it in a book. But I want you to leave a message for the next guest coming on. You remember?
Yes.
Yeah. So it can be anything really. It can be about music, or it can just be a general sort of life topic. It can be as deep or as not deep as you want.
I feel like you should have told me this before I arrived, so I could have thought about it.
Well, maybe we do it then so that you write something down and we don't know what the question is. Do you get what I mean?
So I've got to leave a message for like the next person.
Yeah, more of a question really.
A question. Okay, a question.
Should we do that off camera so you can think about it potentially?
You can do if you want.
Or if you've got one now, then go for it. Something that you would like to, you said about building more of a community with musicians. Just something you'd like to know
something
about.
about that. Or I was going to say, like, right, name your 3 songs of, like, your banger, your absolute
okay,
no.
well, it can be, honestly, anything that you choose.
Yeah, so pick your, like, Snog, Marry, Avoid.
Yeah.
Like that, but for songs. So,
Okay.
like, which song would you marry? Like, absolutely, I will sing that song to the day I die. Which song will you snog that you're like, I might absolutely kill this song, but let's give it a go anyway? And which song would you be like, not happening? I am not singing that in the slightest chance.
I like that.
So, snog, marry, avoid.
And what would your snog, marry, avoid be?
Oh, God. Oh, yeah. Right. I think I'd marry. I think I'd do Dog Days, Florence and the Machine.
Yeah, good
I'll
tune.
sing that till the day I die.
I think I've seen you singing that on live
fucking love
streams as
that.
well. Yeah.
Snog. At the moment, at the current times, is All I Want for Christmas by Mariah Carey, but as we've aforementioned. But I think I like toying with the idea of being able to sing This Is Me from Greatest Showman. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
This is me.
Like snogging someone,
is it a
basically.
tough tune?
Yeah. And going back to what we said about like me straining or shouting, it's a tough one.
Yeah.
Songs that I will completely not sing.
Barry White.
I don't know. I'd smash out a bit of Barry White if I could. You know what? I might really upset you now and say that I don't sing Oasis.
That's fine. No. I'm not a massive Oasis fan. Lee's your Oasis fan.
Oh, he is it? Yeah. I sang. I performed a song by Oasis the other day and it were awful. I did it. Oh, it were awful. And I was like, God, I forgot this song was really low.
Did you get in it like, I said, mate, like get all grit in it and that?
No, I didn't. No, that'd be, no. I did.
Hands behind back.
Yeah. I did She's Electric.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, oh, God, I forgot that this song really doesn't suit me singing it at all.
Yeah, I've always avoided that one for some reason. It's got a lot of guitar chords from what I remember. So I always just like, I'll learn that one, never do. So.
But when I did toy with the idea of playing guitar, because I've got one hung up on my wall, like I look like a musician. Which one did they say to start with that was like a simple chord progression of...
what, with Oasis?
Yeah.
Probably Wonderwall.
No, Bird. What's the Bird one?
Songbird.
Songbird,
it's like 2 chords or something in it, yeah.
And it was like, learn this one and you'll be able to play a song in a bit. And I'm like, all right, okay, yeah.
Funnily, one of the first ones I learnt that. Yeah, it must just be on the archives on YouTube, like, beginner songs or whatever.
Yeah, that's it, yeah. So, yeah. But yeah, it was probably be Oasis.
Yeah.
I'm
fair
not
enough.
really big on singing Oasis songs. I will
You
do
might
it
have to like this summer though, because they're gonna be the talk of the town, aren't they? So
yeah. You're gonna be raking it in.
Right, Kathy. I know you said you're not really a social media head, but where can we find you on the socials?
Oh right, okay, yeah. This is another thing. Someone told me that my social media handle was shit.
Oh, is it like one? Is it like a string of like code?
Because right. So I've been married a couple of times, and so my name changes. So I'm like, fuck, I can't just use my name because it keeps changing. That's a whole other topic of conversation. So I had Kathy, but my parents decided to call me Kathy with a K, so it's K. Kathy Sings.
Yeah.
Just Kathy Sings. But then the problem is if you put that into Facebook, all the profiles that come up are all Oriental ladies who have the surname
like
of Sings.
Singh, yeah.
And so then I have to specify that at gigs, which is awkward. So I'm like, so make sure you look at the pages. It's not a profile, it's a page.
Yeah.
Oh, awkward.
Kathy sings songs. That's what it should be. Something like that.
And I did once think, should I change it? Someone suggested Kathy's Anthems, which I was like, oh, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
But then...
that feels like...
Kathy Xanthams.
Yeah.
And then I thought, should I just go back to my maiden name and just be Kathy Anderson? Because it just rolls off the tongue now. It's just Kathy Anderson.
I always feel like put official. Kathy Sings official. It's like, it sounds good, doesn't it?
Oh, that does, yeah.
Doing.
That's what Jake Heaton official. He's got one of them, yeah.
Official,
Need to pay and get a blue tick, don't I?
Yeah. That makes me laugh. That you see the blue ticks, your local musicians, like, you just pay for that, aren't you?
I need to do that, yeah. So, suggested Instagram handles on a postcard, please.
Yeah, get in the comments. Why not?
Oh, God,
Kathy's a singer, obviously, so be creative.
But I don't want any nasty ones like Kathy's a shit singer.
Yeah, Kathy doesn't sing Oasis or...
Yeah. We don't do Oasis.
Kathy sings, but not Oasis.
But not Oasis.
It's a long handle. Is there anybody... I know we like to be equal, but is there anybody that you've seen recently in the local music scene that you'd recommend?
I've not seen most people locally at the moment. But I know a girl I know has started singing, and she's incredible, called Jess Dillon, and she's got an amazing voice, absolutely amazing. So have a look for her online. She's got a brilliant voice. And a really good friend of mine who doesn't sing as much anymore, which is a real shame, called Nikki Lynch, and she does a lot of dance music and stuff, and she's done original songs with DJs and stuff. She's got a great voice.
Nice.
She brings a real party atmosphere to a gig. Really, really good fun. So yeah, I'd say Jess Dillon and Nikki Lynch.
Cool. The links to their profiles will be in the description.
They can slip me a $5 later.
Yeah. Is there anything you'd like to say to the listeners, or anything that you'd like to finish on that maybe hallmarks a bit about you or your experience today?
Yeah, now you've said it. The other day, a girl came up to me at the end of a gig and asked me some advice about she wanted to get into singing. And I think that idea that if there is anybody who is considering it or thinking, I'd like to one day, maybe one day, and it's just do it. Somewhere, I can't remember it exactly, somewhere there's a diagram when they do training in business of that idea that at the beginning you are aware that you're inadequate, and then you are, you go around to the fact that you're maybe still inadequate, but you're unaware you're inadequate, then you're aware you're inadequate, then you're unaware that you're successful, then you're aware you're successful, and then you go around that cycle again. And so at that starting point, you will be completely aware of the fact that you are inadequate, but the only way to move on is to actually start. So I'm not anybody, people say, oh God, you're amazing, really. No. The only difference, I say to people, 60% of good singing is confidence. You just got to not be scared of doing it.
But you're a household name around show.
Fuck off, Lou B. Sings.
Every time I see you,
fuck off.
Every time I got internet.
Household name, have you heard? What a lot of tribe.
You got gigs all the time, you're doing well. You give yourself some credit.
I'm hustling, I've got hundreds of mouths to feed and all, that's why.
I think you're an inspiration to young female singers and male singers.
Well, yeah.
No, thanks for coming on, Kathy. It's been a pleasure, and I'm sure we'll do this again at some point. And
I hope so. I've had a lovely night.
Can you believe we've been filming for nearly 2 hours? So
we've had a lot of chat. That's
so
good.
It's been brilliant.
Yeah,
I can't wait to edit this.
I know you're going to be like, fucking hell, we can't do that. Oh, what are you doing?
No, it's been a pleasure. Thank you. And thank you, Ashley, for editing for me today.
Cheers,
and we'll see you for the next one. Thank you very much.
Lovely.
Cheers. Brilliant. Thanks, Kathy.